Remain dry, still fairly breezy across the far south, and temperatures will increase by a degree or two by many areas, temperatures pushing into the mid-20s across the south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's brand new and it's the big one. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could win this brand new 4-berth motorhome. But that's just the beginning, as we'll also give you a whopping £35,000 in tax-free cash to spend, save, or just to use to enjoy adventures in your new motorhome.
For a chance to win, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB23 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 23rd of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Iris Murdoch wrote in The Sea, the rain came down straight and silvery like a punishment of steel rods. Speaking as a Londoner, I can only say, if only. On this penultimate Sunday of the month, which is still dry, you're most welcome to 2 hours of replenishing conversation on arts, culture, current affairs and politics. My panel will review the new Prime Minister's style and policy statements and ask, what is Burnhamism? The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are on their way back to Britain 6 years after they upped sticks and moved to California. What will that mean for the monarchy? A new book unearths the extraordinary story of 70,000 men and women, largely drawn from civilian life, who played an instrumental role in winning the Second World War, becoming known as Churchill's secret weapon. The author of Churchill's Pirates will share some of those extraordinary stories. And do we no longer care how Britain looks? I'll be joined by a man who says he's trying to save Britain. All of that and much more, but first, news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Michael, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. 2 police officers killed in a wrong-way crash on the A66 near Middlesbrough have been remembered as brave officers protecting our communities in what's been described as an unimaginable loss. 37-year-old PC Matthew Blades and 38-year-old PC Thomas Clough were killed when a car with 5 occupants said to be in their late teens to early 20s driving the wrong way struck the Cleveland police vehicle around 3:40 a.m. on Saturday. The teens who were also killed haven't been named. It's understood a police pursuit of the car had ended before the crash, with the police vehicle just happening to be in the South Bank area. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is now investigating. Cleveland Police Chief Constable Victoria Fuller shared a tribute.
At 3:39 this morning, a Volkswagen Passat that was travelling the wrong way down the A66 has collided with a marked Cleveland Police armed response vehicle which was travelling on the correct side of the road. Tragically, 2 police officers, PC Matthew Blades and PC Tom Clough, died at the scene, along with the 5 occupants of the Passat as a result of the collision. This is an incredibly sad day for Cleveland. The loss has been felt across our communities by our police family and by our partner agencies. These were brave officers protecting our communities and serving our residents who didn't return home to their families at the end of their shift.
In other news, a small power plant has been shut down during a cyber attack. The government says at no point was there a risk to the UK's energy system, but the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero has contacted power companies to advise them about the risk of attacks. The Daily Telegraph reporting that the attack, which happened last month, was carried out by hackers affiliated to the Iranian regime. The body representing energy firms in the UK says higher energy bills this winter means the government should step in to provide more help for households most in need. Warm Home Discount Energy UK has said that stubbornly high prices over the last few years have left some people needing emergency support over and above the existing £150. It comes as on Wednesday the energy price cap for October onwards will be announced by regulator Ofgem. It's expected to hit a 3-year high. Elsewhere, mayors across England will be given new powers to overrule local councils on some planning decisions. The change would apply to proposals with more than 150 homes, more than 150,000 square metres of commercial space or buildings over 30 metres. The Housing Minister, Matthew Pennycook, said the powers were an essential part of the toolkit that mayors need to effectively deliver new homes and regeneration. But the Conservatives questioned whether it was right for councils to lose the ability to make planning decisions in their own communities. Finally, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says a new wave of US tariffs on Canada is a miscalculation designed to hurt and divide us as after talks collapsed on Friday. Mr Carney confirmed he would match US tariffs dollar for dollar from the 8th of September, including levies on steel, dairy, appliances and electronics. But now that talks have broken down, Canada's been hit with new 50% US tariffs on a range of Canadian goods, in addition to existing US tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium. Both countries were optimistic of a deal earlier in the week, but talks did fall apart after both sides accused the other of making last-minute changes. President Trump has responded this morning, saying Canada wants the benefits of being a state without being one. Those are your latest headlines. Back to Portillo.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Thank you, Tatiana Sanchez. Andy Burnham is very different from Sir Keir Starmer, not least in being an expert creator of laddish social media content. He's established a number 10 in Manchester. He's promised to tackle rough sleeping and the social care system. He's suggested that taxes will go up. He's supported Ukraine. He's been quite critical of Israel. I wonder whether my panel understands what he is about. Joining me now is my panel, journalist and political commentator Ellie Wheatley and the former Labour candidate and political consultant Kevin Craig. Lovely to see you both. Ellie, have you been able to detect yet what is Burnhamism? And if you have, is it well suited to tackling the country's problems?
I mean, that's sort of a question that a lot of people have been asking for a while, because he's sort of been a bit of a political chameleon over his career in politics. I think fundamentally he is quite socialist, and he does want to tax the so-called wealthy in order to give to other people who are more deserving. But I think a big part of who he is wanting to be liked. I mean, you see it in his videos on social media. Often they're quite cringeworthy and a little bit exhausting to watch. So I think so far, however, we have seen that he is sort of still acting as if he is a mayor rather than a prime minister, in the sense that a lot of his policies that he's announced are sort of focusing on issues that he was tackling as mayor of Greater Manchester, homelessness, bus fare caps, etc. So again, we'll have to see what happens at the budget, if he will announce any further policies and tax rises. But at the moment, particularly after a summer of very little scrutiny, it seems that he is more focusing on sort of parochial issues rather than national issues.
And on that theme, were you a little bit surprised by the announcement that's come out now in an interview, I think, with The Times, that the mayors will take control of some planning decisions? We may have got the impression that Burnham was about devolution, but actually, in this instance, the decisions are being taken away from very local people and very local politicians and pushed up to rather more distant politicians.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I don't actually think it's necessarily a terrible idea. But again, it's Burnham sort of changing his policies to sort of match what he thinks is popular. I mean, again, with the national social care service that he's announced, that's actually bringing it all central to Whitehall rather than back to the councils and local government. So we've already sort of seen this flip-flopping and slight hypocrisy in his sort of ideas for devolution anyway. So in that sense, it's not so surprising.
Kevin, I suppose, if you ask people what are the big problems in this country, they might say the National Health Service isn't working very well, the prison service isn't working very well. We've got worries about the justice system, we've got worries about the police system, we've certainly got worries about immigration. Does it look as though the Prime Minister has plans for these very big issues, and is he the man to deal with them?
Yes, you forgot the cost of living, Michael, which is the number one issue for people in this country. And to go back to your bigger question, what is Burnhamism? Not yet a word, I think. It's about an economy that works for more people more fairly. It's about decently funded public services, and I would argue it's about the next generation having a chance to fulfil their potential no matter where their family background is from. And yes, I think Andy Burnham is very committed to making this country fairer, and the cost of living is the thread that flows through everything that's come out of his mouth since he entered number 10. And interestingly, that you called it laddish, I noticed at the top. I don't think it's laddish. We've had
two... talking about crisps or whatever it was.
I think he likes football, as did the last Prime Minister. Interestingly, half of 18 to 24-year-olds have seen the Prime Minister's social media content, which is not bad for a bloke who didn't have a TikTok account, by the way, as recently as May. And I think that Andy Burnham has spent the summer introducing himself, making contact with a lot of young people in particular. I take issue with the suggestion that it's parochial, these issues. People cannot afford life in this country, and they're really fed up about it. And one of the reasons that Keir's popularity was really in a hole is that people didn't feel progress was being made on the cost of living quickly enough. And I think Burnham gets it.
Well, all right, maybe he does get it. So how is he going to bring down the cost of living or stop it going up as fast as it has been going up?
Well, what we've had so far is, I think you will both agree, is a lot of pledges, and the actual economics underneath them yet yet to be made clear, and that's why the October budget is so important. He's talked about bus fares, energy, and today's announcement, which I welcome on housing and planning, because as a former chair of a planning committee, with all due respect to our good local councillors, normally 25% of people vote, right? There's a democratic deficit, and the mayors generally have much higher turnouts. So I would argue giving mayors more power and leverage to get stuff built is going to make a difference to people. So cost of living, and then a lot of the things that were done in the first 2 years, which I think will continue to have impact on people's lives. Childcare, more increases for those who are poorly paid than they had in 10 years before this government.
Well, let me just stick with you, Kevin, in the cost of living for a moment longer.
Yeah.
One of the big features in the cost of living is energy prices. Yeah. A big feature in energy prices is the ambition of net zero. There's something you have to give there then.
I think it is going to give. And I think Andy is going to signal a change in direction in the use of existing North Sea resources, and I don't think that's a bad idea.
Ellie, moving away from the cost of living, though Kevin would like us to be there, I want to go back to this issue about, because I do think a lot of people have the feeling that not much works in Britain today. They want the institutions to be reformed. I've heard nothing, with the exception of social care, I've heard nothing from Andy Burnham to suggest that he gets that people are worried about how badly organised the NHS is. They're worried about the problems we've had with the police. They're certainly worried about prisons, and he's dealing with some legislation from his own government. So I ask you, is he the man to reform the great institutions of the state?
I don't think so. I mean, with regards to the NHS, we know that's a really difficult institution to reform. It is still the religion of this country, and I think any Prime Minister will find it really difficult to totally overhaul that unless they have some really radical ideas, which would be unpopular. But I think personally that the number one priority for any sovereign state is to look after their citizens at home and abroad. And as you say, he hasn't really said anything about investing in the prison system, indeed building new prisons, defence. He hasn't actually committed to the 3% of GDP spending on defence by 2030. All of these things he's sort of kind of wanting to avoid so that he can announce, you know, the land of milk and honey, whether it's homelessness or the £18 billion a year national care service. So I think he's going to have a really tricky time doing all of that. I mean, he's also got this Chancellor John Healey, who is very aware of what brought down Rachel Reeves, which is the high tax, high spending splurge that she announced at her previous budgets, which, of course, fueled the cost of living crisis, particularly with the NICS hike. So I personally think he might not be the man.
It is interesting, you made the point already, that in many ways he is a centraliser. I mean, there are some people here who think that the answer for the National Health Service is to make it more like the social care service. That is to say, it has elements of the state and elements of the private sector, and the two working together. But as you said, his plan for social care is to establish a national care service like the National Health Service. I mean, some people would scream at the idea because they think the National Health Service runs so badly at the moment. On defence, my instinct would be to say, well, let's buy more stuff abroad so that there's more competition and we actually buy things that work. His instinct is no, to buy only British, which simply increases the monopoly supplier power of BAE and other suppliers. There aren't many other suppliers. Yeah. So we do see what some of his instincts are, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I think fundamentally he is a sort of socialist who... I'm not against the idea of reinvesting in British businesses and that sort of thing, but mostly on the whole, which we will talk about later, I'm sure, is nationalisation doesn't necessarily work. And I think that if you focus on, if the state is running businesses and other sectors of the government, the nation, it tends to sort of crumble.
Kevin, he has done well on social media, and there's been a bounce in the polls.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're right to make the point that he's reaching people that other politicians have not been reaching. Is this sustainable? I mean, things are going to get tough. We don't know how they're going to get tough.
Yeah.
But things always get difficult for prime ministers. In 2 years' time, is he going to be able to be the same kind of person as he is now? Chatty, friendly, informally dressed, Is he going to be able to sustain that when the going gets very tough?
I think so, but you are right to highlight that things will get difficult, and the bounce, which has been very strong in the first month or so, you know, that will change. But ultimately, it's the same thing that was affecting Keir and Rachel, which is ratings and popularity. And do people feel things are moving? I think there is quite a good grasp around number 10 that they have to deliver. And I'm optimistic on defence. You're right to flag it. But John Healey, having resigned, is not going to sit in the Treasury and not deliver on 3%. And Andy Burnham is a capitalist because he's committed to the Labour Party manifesto of 2024. He said he's not going to go against that. And the Labour Party, I mean, he's more of a democratic socialist, I think, which is that he believes in capitalism but wants more consideration for those at the bottom end as well as those. He's very pro-business, but we will see. But things will cut up rough, Michael. But the vision is, I think, a capitalist country but with much more of a conscience and a determination to deliver for poor people.
Do you have a feeling, Kevin, as to whether he would call an election, let's say, in the next year?
I don't see it. I don't see it because...
yes, give us your workings.
Well, the workings are that it would be an act of self-harm with the polls where they are currently. You know, Labour had this historic majority in 2024, which really was historic in the literal sense. And I think Andy will probably go longer and try and put his own stamp on the country. We haven't talked about today that there's a 10-year plan coming out later this year. There's the budget. I think he'll want to show that he's capable of delivering before he goes for an election. You're laughing at the 10-year plan.
I am, yes, I hadn't realised there was a 10-year plan because the Soviets only had 5-year plans. That tells us quite a lot. Ellie, what do you think of the possibility of an election? I mean, some people say that the huge majority is a bit of a burden, especially given how rebellious they've been. They did not fall in line behind Sir Keir Starmer, and that was part of his
Absolutely, and there's already rumblings that 100 MPs are willing to rebel on whether it's settlement for migrants in the UK and, of course, welfare cuts. I think the chance is probably a 25% chance in May. It's not going to be before the budget, is my prediction. But, I mean, you can see, as Burnham, you've got sort of two wolves inside you. You've worked so hard to get to this position. You want to cling on to power for as long as possible, but then there is the possibility that things actually could just get worse. You become more unpopular, like Starmer and also the other prime ministers before him. And so maybe if you announce all the great policies and then call it an election, that's probably the best chance.
A 25% chance. I believe that is exactly the right figure. Thank you very much indeed, Ellie Weakley and Kevin Craig. And they will return at noon to discuss whether railways and water companies should be renationalised. But coming up in the short term, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are on their way back to Britain 6 years after relocating to California. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. It's been quite a week for the Sussex household. We learned this week that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan are moving back to Britain and they're enrolling their children in English schools. Prince Harry and 6 other high-profile figures were ordered jointly to make an initial payment of £9.5 million to the Daily Mail's publisher after losing their High Court privacy case. Why are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex leaving California, and what does it mean for the monarchy? The royal commentator and journalist Pandora Forsyth joins me now.
Hello.
Pandora, hello, welcome to GB News. I think this raises some very serious questions as far as I'm concerned. Looking ahead, and maybe one shouldn't do this too much, but looking ahead to the time when William ascends the throne, is it possible to have a situation of a man on the throne, a king, with a brother living in the same country with whom he never speaks? Is that possible for the royal family?
It could be quite possible. Harry wrote a whole book about it, didn't he, called Spare. So it could happen. But in my opinion, I would hope that it wouldn't happen. Not only would that damage the monarchy, but I think, quite frankly, that would be a very sad set of circumstances. Harry is coming back to the UK, whether William likes it or not. He's coming back. He has a right to come back, despite what people may or may not think of him. And if he wants to educate his children in the UK and give them that opportunity and put the best foot forward in terms of parenting from a safety perspective in comparison to the US, I can see why. However, really now, both of the brothers ought to put their differences aside and come together at a time where the King's health has been hitting the headlines, and it is no secret. He's the eldest monarch we've ever had, and really you would ought to think that they would. But there's a lot to forgive here, isn't there?
I mean, you say Harry has a right to live in this country. I think some people would say that he has a duty not to, and that his decision to come back to this country is yet another example of his very spoilt behaviour, which doesn't show any sense of the duty that he owes to the monarchy. His return to Britain, I put it to you, is an intense embarrassment. I mean, of course, it may be a great consolation to his father, who's not been well, but to have this person who does not do royal duties, who has written so disobligingly about the monarchy. He's called this country racist. He's called the royal family racist. He exasperated his brother, the heir to the throne, to such an extent that the two of them don't speak to each other whatsoever. I mean, it seems to me that he's actually risking enormous damage to the institution of the monarchy. And I'm not quite sure that it's enough to say, oh, well, he has a right to live in the country where he was born.
That is a fact, though. He does have the right to come back should he want to. But of course, I can completely understand why people are annoyed. There's been plenty of contradictory messaging coming from Harry and Meghan, and they have said on a very public stage about their experience as the royal family. The one thing I would say is that they are now coming back as private citizens. Now, as a private citizen, you would like to think that they would be private citizens in that terms and conditions of being a private citizen, i.e. stay away from being any part of the workings of a senior member of the royal family, for which they were before. So I'd like to think that they would know the difference at their ages on that. And I think it's really key here that there is communication, even if it is on a civil level, between the households and the Sussex camp and their team, as to not get clashing diaries. Harry needs to stay out of their business, and he needs to ensure that he lets them get on with their job. And ultimately, the next steps here would, in order to do that, would be ensuring that there isn't diary clashes when they're out and about, should they make any public appearances, such as the Invictus Games and any other charity patronage that you need to get on with. And I'd like to think that Harry would do that. And if they're coming back, and the main reason they're coming back is for family, for their children, and to be there for a private capacity for Meghan's father-in-law and, of course, Harry's father, then, you know, keep that all behind private doors, essentially, and let the monarchy get on with its job. I think that will hopefully bring the public a little bit more on side for them. They have a huge opportunity here. I just hope that they use it in the right way.
Pandora, I'm not sure I've quite understood, or if I have, I'm not sure I agree with the reason you give for them coming back. I mean, you were saying something about the children and so on, but I mean, yes, they assured us before that they were not going to live in this country. They told us before they couldn't imagine the circumstances in which they'd come back to this country. They thought this country was racist. This was not the place they wanted to bring up their children. What made the difference? I mean, let me remind you that until a few days ago, no one dreamt that they were going to come back. This has taken us all by surprise. What is the real reason for their return?
There's elements to it. One is the king. And I think another reason may be to do with the fact that they want their children educated in the UK for safety reasons, in comparison to the US. You know, they've been quite vocal about Trump, and that's not going to change anytime soon in the US. And there have been plenty of awful headlines coming from the US to do with school shootings as well. So I'm sure that has very much been at the forefront of their mind. But I completely understand why that would be confusing for members of the public. And really, this ought to be addressed should they want to have any sort of public-facing interviews, and they should be open to questions like this. But again, that would kind of go against them being private citizens, I suppose. But their children do have a right to privacy. And as private citizens, they are not working members of the royal family. We won't, as journalists, be able to give private details, as we both well know, about the intricacies of that. Yes.
Pandora, just a very quick one at the end. It's going to end up, isn't it, with the taxpayer paying for their protection, even though they're not working royals?
It would be on an application basis due to the High Court. So they would need to put an application together should they have a big public-facing event, such as the Invictus Games.
I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they're going to need round-the-clock protection because you know, we cannot have a situation. You know, there have been sort of threats against the royal family from Iran and so on. We cannot have a situation where something happens to this family. I think we're going to end up paying for their protection, even though they put nothing in to public service. That seems to be the situation. But Pandora, I fear we have to leave it there. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. A new book unearths the extraordinary story of 70,000 men and women who played an instrumental role in winning the Second World War, becoming known as Churchill's Pirates. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a chilly start this morning, but feeling nice and warm again by the time we reach the afternoon. It is gradually going to turn more and more unsettled this week, though, with some rain and also some showers. For the time being, though, it's mostly dry, settled, all thanks to this area of high pressure sitting nicely across the UK today. So many areas are going to see a dry afternoon, plenty of sunshine out there, probably more sunshine than what we saw yesterday. Saying that, though, it's likely to be a little bit cloudy across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, the odd spot of rain across the far north of Scotland. But for many areas, it is going to be dry, a touch warmer than yesterday, many areas pushing into the low 20s, and across the far north, temperatures pushing in towards the high teens. So it should be quite a nice end to the weekend for many areas. Still, though, by the evening across Scotland, quite a cloudy picture, still some spots of rain across the very far north and northwest. Also quite a cloudy end to the day across Northern Ireland, some spots of rain, mostly light though, and across the hills. Perhaps a little bit cloudier towards the end of the day across the far north of England, but otherwise elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to finish off. Now, overnight, skies will clear more and more, certainly across the far north where it's been a little bit cloudier this afternoon. That does mean under the clearest skies, temperatures are soon going to be dipping away, so it's another chilly night. Temperatures in the countryside could dip down to the low single figures. Perhaps not dropping quite as low across the far south, a bit of an easterly breeze developing here, which should hold temperatures up quite nicely. Then Monday itself looks like quite a settled picture, plenty of bright skies to start the day. We could see a little bit more cloud into the afternoon and the odd spot of rain, but most areas are likely to remain dry, still fairly breezy across the far south, and temperatures will increase by a degree or two by many areas, temperatures pushing into the mid-20s across the south.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. A new book uncovers remarkable stories of volunteers who helped the war effort during the Second World War by operating a ragtag fleet of fishing trawlers, pleasure yachts and small dinghies to clear mines, to rescue Allied troops from Dunkirk and perhaps most notably to spearhead the D-Day landings of 1944. Author of Churchill's Pirates, the seafaring heroes who helped to win World War II, Will Iredale is here. Now, congratulations on the book.
Thank you very much.
So, what was the first task that faced us when we went to war in 1939? I'll just say as a prelude, I was always taught there was this period called the Phony War, which lasted from September through to about April, May of 1940. But actually, in that Phony War, a lot of our shipping was getting sunk.
That's right.
And a lot of men were dying.
Yes, they were, and it was anything but phony for the guys I've written about in this book. So at the beginning of the war, it became clear very quickly to the Allies that one of the key ways that Germany could squeeze Britain was by mining the sea lanes and the ports. And while the Royal Navy was the most powerful navy in the world at that time, that was really the bigger ships, the sort of capital ships they're called. When it came to small ships, we really weren't. And especially minesweepers, there was something like 30 sweepers to protect 20,000 miles of coastline. So Churchill, as First Lord of the Admiralty, realised quickly something needed to be done, and he mobilised what became known as the Royal Naval Patrol Service, rather a dry name. But he requisitioned 200 trawlers, deep-sea trawlers from Grimsby, Hull, all those big sort of fishing ports, and their crews. and they were fish holes were turned into mess decks. Fishing nets were removed, replaced by sweeping gear, and old 12-pound sort of Georgian guns, Edwardian guns, were put on the bows, and Lewis guns from machine gun, were put on the ships, and out they went, and they were pushed out so quickly that they didn't have time to have uniforms on. And the story goes that when Churchill saw them, he smiled and he said they looked like a load of bloody pirates. And that was where the...
Why don't you show us your...
Yeah, so...
Because this very point is illustrated on the front, isn't it?
This is, yes.
Looking like a bunch of pirates.
Right, and this is an actual... this is some of the crew of a trawler called Northern Gem. And that chap there, Sid Kerslake, features a lot in my book, a former Hull deep-sea trawlerman. And they were actually... That was as they were going on the ill-fated PQ-17 Arctic convoy, when more than half of the ships didn't make it to Archangel. But actually, from that sort of rather ragtag beginning, Michael, the patrol service grew rapidly, so that by the end of the war, 70,000 men strong, 700 wrens, manning 6,000 vessels across the world. They saw action in every theatre, and they lost more ships than all the other parts of the Royal Navy put together. And at one stage in they did have more ships, but at one stage in 1940, one armed trawler was being sunk every 4 days.
Absolutely appalling.
And yet no one knows about them.
They do now.
Yeah, quite.
You say that the trawlers were requisitioned, but were the men and women volunteers?
Well, so right at the beginning, there was something called the Royal Naval Reserve. So some fishermen pre-war, they had 3 or 4 weeks training every year where, if needed, if required, they would step up to the mark. So some of them were reservists, but the vast majority were indeed volunteers. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about what happened first at Dunkirk with these people.
Well, so Dunkirk is an interesting one because if you think about Dunkirk, all those men couldn't be rescued unless the mines were cleared. So 3 main channels were cleared, and a lot of that was spearheaded by Churchill's pirates. There were obviously what was known as fleet sweepers, so Royal Navy sweepers, but more than 100 armed trawlers were part of that rescue. They actually ended up rescuing 30,000 men in total off the beaches, and obviously also something called the East Mole, which was a pier. And almost 1/5 of the trawlers that were involved in Dunkirk got sunk.
And what was their role in D-Day?
Well, D-Day is interesting because if you think about D-Day, June 1944, you couldn't get the men to the beaches until you cleared the sea of mines. So again, it was a mixture of the fleet sweepers and also the trawlers as well. And people often, if you think about Hollywood, people talk about D-Day being an American affair. Well, if you think about this stat, that for every 1 American minesweeper, there were 10 British or Canadian sweepers, many of whom were manned by Churchill's pirates. And they not only helped clear the channels to get the main sort of transport ships in, but then off the beaches, of course, because the Germans were constantly trying to infest the seas with mines. So it was their role to clear the seas of mines.
How did you sweep a mine, and how dangerous was it?
Depends what sort of mine it was. So if it was something called a moored mine, which was dropped to the bottom of the sea with a concrete weight and a cable, and it floated just below the sort of surface, then that was a wire that came through, a weighted wire, which would just cut it. The mine would come to the surface, and then some sharpshooters would shoot away at it, and it would disappear. Or what Hitler used, especially in the early months of the war, was what he called his secret weapon. It was the magnetic mine, which is a clever piece of kit, which was a ground mine. It sort of laid in shallow water on the seabed, and every metal ship has a natural magnetism, and that would trigger something inside the mine. And the Germans inadvertently dropped a couple of these mines on Southend mudflats in November 1939, and Britain's mine boffins got to work. They went through it, they opened it, and Churchill called it the entrails of the mine. He loved this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And they found out how it worked, and they came up with a number of solutions to help trigger the magnetic mine.
And how did these people get involved in secret work?
Well, so both SOE and also SISMI5 were doing clandestine work in mainly sort of Brittany, pretending to be Breton fishermen. They would go over there. But they needed hard-nosed men who wouldn't feel sick if they were stuck in kind of like fishy, diesely, smoky kind of small vessels. And where better to find those than from the headquarters of the patrol service at Lowestoft. And it became a kind of, conveyor belt. And they really were quite a large part of that clandestine movement.
Do you want to attempt a tribute to these people you've written about?
Do I want to? Well, do you know what? There aren't many left. There are probably less than 50 veterans alive. One of them sent me an email a couple of days ago, and it was lovely. And he said, "I've never read a book so quickly. It made me seem like I was back on the vessels with my crewmates again." Oh. And do you know what? I mean, it just gives me goosebumps now. And I thought, 80 years on or whatever, I can't really think of a better tribute than that.
Congratulations. Thank you very much indeed, Will Ardale. And the book is called Churchill's Pirates. Coming up, do we no longer care what Britain looks like? This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We have an area of low pressure developing just towards the west of Portugal, bringing some much needed rain and showers towards Portugal, parts of Spain, and also drifting into parts of France. Could be a little bit heavy, potentially thundery at times, but any thundery downpours across parts of the Alps have now eased away. A few showers in parts of Greece, otherwise still very much dry, settled with some sunshine, and it remains that way for the rest of the week with temperatures pushing into the mid-30s across parts of Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Becky, Chad and the beekeepers, Richard, Mohammed and James. Well, thank you all for coming. So tell us what happened.
So I got a phone call about 7:30 on Sunday evening from one of the rangers to tell us that there was a forest fire that was spreading quite rapidly and the bees were in danger, and if we could get down as soon as we could to get them out.
Oh, I suppose this is a real challenge because bees, whilst they do flit around all over the place, they're pretty stuck to their colonies.
Yes, absolutely. The boys were the ones that were there.
When we approached it, the fire was quite close to the colonies, so we had to make a decision very quickly on whether or not to remove them from the apiary or keep them there and try and just water down the area. And after we saw flames on the horizon, we decided that, no, we've just got to make the decision to move the bees to a safer place, which we did.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I do think it's worrying that young people, are they I think they are more risk averse. Yes. I think they are scared of getting into personal space. I think you're right, there are issues about consent and everything else. But how sad that people say that it's been a year since they've been kissed. What is life for if you're not having a little kiss every now and again?
Yeah, the death of the kiss.
Apparently, much younger people now haven't had a good snog in over 12 months on average, the people that have been interviewed. But I would hazard a guess that that's because people are frightened. Men don't know when they can approach women anymore. Men can think 1 or 2 steps ahead on the same board, whereas a woman will think about 18 steps. So
I think you're overthinking it.
If a man takes you to Paris for the weekend, a woman will come back disappointed that they haven't proposed them, whereas a man thinks they've done a really great thing.
Why do men always think you're going to be proposed to in Paris? That you expect that? We don't expect
men
that.
are not
Just
emotionally
take us
as
to Paris.
intelligent.
The People's Channel.
We're only here for like 12 hours. We're flying home at 11 o'clock tonight.
Oh, and mummy and daughter.
Yeah, and it only costs £70, so we thought, well, why not? Because it's cheaper than a supermarket shop.
Supermarket shop or spending the day in Benidorm with cheap booze.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a no-brainer.
And is there no chance you might just decide we're going to stay?
No, because my husband would kill me.
We did consider it because I said to my mum earlier on, we might
just stay and miss the flight, but she's not up for it.
Has your husband actually visited Benidorm the Zone?
No, he hasn't. I've been here 27 times. That's my daughter's first time. She's a Benidorm virgin. But
Well,
my husband's never been.
Not that he's told you anyway, let's put it like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Have we lost pride in Britain because architects have given up on beauty when it comes to designing our buildings? Nicholas Boyce-Smith, the founder of Create Streets, argues that designers have made a conscious choice to bypass beauty and that cost isn't the reason that decorative features have been left off and behind. Melissa Twigg opined in The Telegraph that ugly government buildings, uninspiring schools, depressing hospitals have shaped our relationship with our country and made it harder for Britons to feel pride in the public realm. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the CEO of Looking for Growth, Lawrence Newport. Lawrence, welcome to GB News.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. What do you make of the thesis that I've just advanced? I mean, firstly, that we're talking mainly about the public sector, by the way, that in the public sector, buildings like schools and hospitals lack adornment, can be very clunky, can be very ugly, and they don't bear comparison with their equivalents, let's say, from the Victorian age. What do you think of that thesis?
I think, unfortunately, it's entirely correct. I mean, we can see it in some of the examples you talked about today. The one that really sticks in my mind, really there's two. Ones you see kind of every day, or certainly used to, post boxes and phone boxes, and in fact, for a third, water fountains. If you see the new water fountains in London, they're these strange plastic water droplets. We didn't used to build things like this. In fact, the water fountains themselves were once ornate. You had creatures in them, you had actual care taken over them. Our public spaces now no longer have any care like that. In fact, it's often plastic, garish, or just plain ugly.
We were looking at screen there a moment ago, a comparison between telephone boxes, those designed by Gilbert Scott, and the sort of BT-era glass boxes with no kind of detail or pleasantness to them. It's interesting, isn't it, that even telephone boxes that don't have telephones in them today are a source of great pleasure to tourists. Outside Parliament in London, you see people join an enormous queue to be photographed with the old Gilbert Scott telephone box because it's such a beautiful artefact. And we've lost that.
Yeah, we used to take time, pleasure and effort on what we created. That is something we seem to have lost. And I do agree that I think this is in part choices by designers, but it's also choices by our legislators. You can look at right now at Looking for Growth. We're running a campaign to kickstart Britain. And one of the parts of that campaign looks at housing, for example, where we've essentially made sash windows illegal, even though 3 in 4 people prefer to have those. We've made it more difficult to build Georgian townhouses, almost impossible. These are regulatory choices that our legislators have decided to make at the same time as our designers, who are pitching to also often our legislators these awful designs and building things like those terrible water fountains. And indeed, those awful phone boxes by BT are something which no one's going to get a photograph taken outside of, and are just more evidence of the crime, grime and decline that we are currently in.
I had no idea that sash windows had been banned. Is that all part of net zero? And other than the sash windows, what else prevents you building a nice Georgian-style house?
There's a series of quite complex regulation, which is essentially meaning that these things are illegal. Some parts are to do with net zero. Some parts are basically to do with various targets and housing targets and what you need to build and in what sizes. These are things that can be essentially removed tomorrow. If Angela Rayner wanted to do so, she could do it. And in fact, you mentioned earlier, Nicholas Boyce-Smith from Create Streets. At LFG, we've adopted many of their views on exactly this. You could put together a pattern book, have it nationally or locally, and local leaders could just say, if you build buildings in this way, in this style, they'll be approved at a much faster rate. And here's something that we know the public actually wants to see in their local areas, not concrete cubes that seem to be popping up all over the place.
The article that appeared last week that's prompted me to have this item in the programme today, alleged that it wasn't cost that was the problem here, that, you know, actually details, decorative details can be mass-produced. They don't have to be hand-carved or anything like that. So putting a decorative detail on is not a matter of cost. And it was also said in that article that there was a kind of ideology, I think the article said, starting about 80 years ago, where architects just favoured a sort of brutalism. So this was a conscious choice. And, by the way, not one that has affected other countries. The article also alleged that in France, for example, new public buildings are still elegant and a joy to look at.
Yeah, we have unfortunately chosen this path. This was an ideological choice that we have really not rejected over the past 80 years. I don't think it's held with the same fervour, but it just repeats. We don't now place value in our public buildings. I think some of the worst examples actually in that article are really hospitals and schools as well, because these are places where people actually go to, in hospitals for emergencies or otherwise, but schools every single day. And we seem to have no pride in those buildings, let alone our larger civic buildings, or indeed the ornaments across the street, like our water fountains.
Does this affect the private sector in the same way? Would you say that some of the buildings in the private sector of the last few years actually are elegant and adorned and interesting?
I think there's more options in the private sector. I think they also can get this wrong. And I think sometimes it's because of who they're hiring to design these buildings are often people who've gone through the same design schools and otherwise. Unfortunately, this ideology does carry through, but there are more choices and more options in the private sector as opposed to public, where in the public, we seem to have just completely given up on it or made it effectively illegal to do so.
And I will say, I'll just mention railways. I mean, one of the things we're rather good at is restoration. We're not good at new buildings, it seems to be. You know, the restoration of St Pancras Station, for example, absolutely magnificent, a triumph. Restoration of the British Museum in London, a triumph. So when we allow...
Battersea Power Station.
Battersea Power
also
Station.
A very good one.
When we allow the past to show through, we actually don't do such a bad job. So you're on a bit of a campaign here to try and make Britain look more beautiful.
Indeed. Alongside Create Streets, who've been doing some excellent work on this. This is something which, as you say, it doesn't cost more. We just have to choose it, and we should.
Yes. And I think the public sector does sometimes get it right. I'm just going to talk about railways again. But I've been struck by how some of the underground stations have been built in recent years. They're spacious, they're interesting, they're challenging. Obviously, they're not Victorian, but they're not bad buildings.
Yeah, there are some rays of hope. There's just no reason for those to be the exception. They should actually be the expectation and the rule.
Very good. Lawrence Newport, I obviously wish you very good luck with your campaign. Well, that concludes the first hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. But do please rejoin me at noon. The panel will grapple with the pros and cons of public ownership. What was the nature of Richard Wagner's anti-Semitism, and how, if at all, did it influence Hitler? Stephen Kyriazis will take to the stage once more. He's reviewing Abigail's Party and how the other half lives. And as we enter the final weeks of summer, there's still time to enjoy rosé wine. You know what that means? It means that I will be trying rosé wine, and I hope you'll join me then. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News. See you at noon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a chilly start this morning, but feeling nice and warm again by the time we reach the afternoon. It is gradually going to turn more and more unsettled this week, though, with some rain and also some showers. For the time being, though, it's mostly dry, settled, all thanks to this area of high pressure sitting nicely across the UK today. So many areas are going to see a dry afternoon, plenty of sunshine out there, probably more sunshine than what we saw yesterday. Saying that, though, it's likely to be a little bit cloudier across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, the odd spot of rain rain across the far north of Scotland. But for many areas, it is going to be dry, a touch warmer than yesterday, many areas pushing into the low 20s, and across the far north, temperatures pushing in towards the high teens. So it should be quite a nice end to the weekend for many areas. Still, though, by the evening across Scotland, quite a cloudy picture. Still some spots of rain across the very far north and northwest. Also quite a cloudy end to the day across Northern Ireland. Some spots of rain, mostly light though, and across the hills. Perhaps a little bit cloudier towards the end of the day across the far north of England, but otherwise elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to finish off. Now, overnight, skies will clear more and more, certainly across the far north where it's been a little bit cloudier this afternoon. That does mean under the clearest skies, temperatures are soon going to be dipping away, so it's another chilly night. Temperatures in the countryside could dip down to the low single figures. Perhaps not dropping quite as low across the far south, a bit of an easterly breeze developing here, which should hold temperatures up quite nicely. Then Monday itself looks like quite a settled picture, plenty of bright skies to start the day. We could see a little bit more cloud into the afternoon and the odd spot of rain, but most areas are likely to remain dry, still fairly breezy across the far south, and temperatures will increase by a degree or two by many areas, temperatures pushing into the mid-20s across the south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway of the year so far.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this brand new McClure Fusion could be yours. We'll also boost your bank account too with a further £35,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like.
For a chance to win, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB23 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 23rd of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
May I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. You're most welcome here on Sunday with Michael Portillo for another hour of arts, culture, music and wine. Do we benefit from the state ownership of railways? Should we be renationalising water companies? My panel will opine. Richard Wagner may have been the greatest writer of song for the human voice, but were his works permeated with anti-Semitism? Stefan Kyriazis will take to the stage once more to share his reviews of Abigail's Party and How the Other Half Lives. And as we enter the final weeks of August, let's enjoy rosé wine. All of that and much more. First, your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. 2 police officers killed in a wrong-way crash on the A66 near to Middlesbrough have been remembered as brave officers protecting our communities in what's been described as an unimaginable loss. 37-year-old PC Matthew Blades and 38-year-old PC Tom Clough were killed when a car with 5 occupants said to be in their late teens to early 20s driving the wrong way struck the Cleveland police vehicle around 3:40 a.m. on Saturday. The teens, who were also killed, have not been named. It's understood a police pursuit of the car had ended before the crash, with the police vehicle just happening to be in the South Bank area. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is now investigating. Cleveland Police Chief Constable Victoria Fuller shared a tribute.
This is an incredibly sad day for Cleveland. These were brave officers protecting our communities and serving our residents who didn't return home to their families at the end of their shift.
In other news, a small power plant has been shut down during a cyber attack. The government says at no point was there a risk to the UK's energy system, but the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero has contacted power companies to advise them about the risk of attacks. The Daily Telegraph reported the attack, which happened last month, was carried out by hackers affiliated to the Iranian regime. Elsewhere, the body representing energy firms in the UK says higher energy bills this winter mean the government should step in to provide more help for households most in need. Warm Home Discount Energy UK has said that stubbornly high prices over the last few years have left some people needing emergency support over and above the existing £150. It comes as on Wednesday the energy price cap from October onwards will be announced by Ofgem. It's expected to hit a 3-year high. Forecasters has indicated that households will see their bills rise by another 4% in the latest hike this year. A scheme that could see serious sexual and violent offenders confined to areas just a few miles wide after leaving prison will be launched in October, the Justice Secretary has announced. Government ministers say this is designed to give victims greater freedom and further reduce the possibility of unwanted contact. The intention to introduce restriction zones for violent offenders who leave prison and who are on probation was first announced by the government last year. Mayors across England will be given new powers to overrule local councils on some planning decisions. The move would see mayors allowed to call in the decisions and direct councils to take them forward or refuse them. They will also be able to grant upfront permission so developers can start building without having to apply. This will apply to developments of more than 150 homes, commercial spaces of more than 15,000 square metres or any building 30 metres or taller. Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook said the powers were an essential part of the toolkit that mayors need to effectively deliver new homes and regeneration. But the Conservatives have questioned whether it was right for councils to lose the ability to make planning decisions in their own communities. And Meghan Markle's acting comeback has reportedly been put on hold amid reports that the role she was offered in Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman has been withdrawn due to significant backlash. In her Substack Fresh Hell, royal author Tina Brown claimed the reaction in Britain had become so intense that Netflix deemed it untenable to move forward. On Friday, it was revealed that she was in advanced discussions to star in the UK-based production after her relocation to Britain with Prince Harry and their 2 children. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/. gbenews.com/truth.
Thank you, Tatiana Sanchez. Railway companies are being taken back into public ownership one by one. Does the public benefit? Should the government assuage public anger against the privately owned water companies by renationalising them? Joining me again, my panel, journalist and political commentator Ellie Wheatley and the former Labour candidate and political consultant Kevin Craig. Welcome back. Kevin, the answer to those two questions about the railways and the water companies.
Well, the railways, I think, and is there anybody better qualified to have opinions with us on trains than this man? But I think on trains, it's easy in some ways because licences expire and the government can take back control without chucking huge amounts of public money into undeserving investors' pockets. And I think the jury's out, though, because some service levels have gone up since they've been taken back into state control and others have gone down. On water, I am very nervous at any possibility that this Labour government nationalises Thames Water, for example.
Why?
Because the company carries so much debt, and also, even as we've come on air this weekend, there's discussions about them hiring very aggressive lawyers to try and make this as expensive as possible for the taxpayer. And also, I think there's a chance that Thames Water is going to run into some form of bankruptcy itself, insolvency, and will be able to do this in a much cheaper way. And if you look at what they've done, £1 million signing on bonus to the finance director. I mean, I think it verges on immoral what they've done, but I think, as Andy Burnham said this, that it's too expensive and not a great use of public money. So I'm very nervous that our government will, and I don't think they will do it because I think it's a bad idea.
You're right about one thing, and I do have views about trains. And I've just made this point to you. Before nationalisation, when I was the minister, because I wasn't there when they were nationalised, when they were denationalised, before nationalisation, there were 700 million passenger journeys made by train. And by the time of the COVID outbreak, there were 1.7 billion. So to make that easy for you, it more than doubled. There were 1 billion journeys added to over 700 million at the beginning. Now, a lot of things happened in that period, including privatisation. But I don't see that the privatisation of the railways was a failure.
But when you compare our railways to those in Europe, where you spend a lot of your free time, overall, I think, isn't the standard better in Europe, where predominantly they're state-owned?
It's a very mixed bag in Europe now, actually, between state-owned and non-state-owned. Quite complicated in many countries. But we were the first country... We probably shouldn't get into a big discussion about this, but we were the first country to do railways, and we've never really modernised them. We're relying basically on sort of Victorian track, and we've hardly got into high-speed rail whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we know the problems with high-speed rail. What I'm really saying to you is I don't know that it makes any difference whether the railways are nationalised or not nationalised. But people seem to have got an idea in their mind that they want the railways nationalised again. Would you agree with that?
Well, they have, and I think it is more nuanced. And what the government would say is that already there's £150 million a year of public money which is not going into operators' pockets as a result of the nationalisations that have happened. I agree with you. It is quite nuanced. And ultimately, will fares come down? Will service reliability increase? Will there be better connections to areas that don't have it? That's what the public will judge Labour on at the end of this first term.
And by the way, safety is a very important factor as well. As I say, I was the Minister for Railways when they were still nationalised, and I spent a very unhappy 2 years going to one accident after another. So, nationalisation is not a guarantee of safety. Safety record, despite the 2 derailments last week, has been pretty good over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I do think there are a lot of things that the public don't know, though, about when governments can intervene and nationalise to the public good. And I think it happened in your term in government. Rolls-Royce, believe it or not, was saved as an entity by the government nationalising before it was then reprivatised in '87. So the government can do things for the good, but Thames Water makes me nervous, and I think we need to let that play out.
Ellie, we've kept you waiting a long time. What are your views on this subject?
Well, I think it's very easy to assume that if you nationalise things, then there'll be better service, lower cost, but that is not the case. And as you've seen, of course, under Thatcher, the privatisation of the utilities absolutely, totally restored railways, electricity, phone, BT, etc. So, because with...
Sorry, you're saying things got better when they were denationalised, is that what you were saying?
Yes, yeah, when they were privatised. And that is, of course, because there's the profit incentive, but also governments tend to want to stick to day-to-day spending, like in the NHS, rather than big capital investment. I agree with you on Thames Water. And, of course, nationalising water across the UK would cost at least £100 billion, and we don't have the money for that. And although Andy Burnham did initially say he wanted to do that, he's sort of rolling back. He doesn't really have the funds to. On the railways, all I've seen since, one by one they've been nationalised is just poor service. In South Western Railway, cancellations have gone up by 50% since they were nationalised last year, and delays by 29%. And by the way, I know the costs have not come down. And even when they announced this, Labour ministers, I think it was Heidi Alexander, who was Transport Secretary at the time, said, well, we can't actually guarantee that prices will come down. So it's definitely not a solution in my eyes.
When BT was nationalised, and by the way, the monopoly supplier of telephones, you had to wait 6 months for a telephone.
Yeah.
And by the way, it would only be black. And it got to the stage where you bribed telephone engineers. I won't say whether I participated in this.
I think we know.
To get a telephone installed. Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. A point you've also made about investment. I mean, British Airways had to be privatised in the end because it needed to buy 747s. And the Treasury said, well, you can have 2. And they said, no, we need to buy 70 or whatever the figure was. And the only way that investment could be carried out was by privatising the company so that they could get funds in the market for what they were doing. And I think people have forgotten some of these points.
Absolutely, because, I wasn't around during the 70s.
Indeed you weren't.
But, I hear from all, my parents and their friends how miserable it was. And I think we need to, let my generation and the generation before me, know about how bad it really was. And actually, we don't want to go down this path again, not least because the upfront costs would be, extortionate, and actually we can't afford it. But then the running of these utilities afterwards will not be as
But on Thames Water, and sorry to cut across you, but on Thames Water, what they've done at the helm of that business verges on immoral with the dividends, with the payments, with the pollution, and that's the challenge, I think. That has not worked.
No, and I'm not going to make an argument about water. I mean, water has gone, I think, desperately badly wrong. May I ask you, though, this really pick up on Ellie's point, what is the state of Labour ideology about nationalisation? Because at one time, Labour thought that the commanding heights of the economy should be in public hands. So that used to include, steel and all the energy companies, telephone companies and so on. What is the state of Labour ideology today?
I don't think there's a fixed ideology that says nationalisation is always better than privately held companies. I think it's very pragmatic. It's what works. Thames Water hasn't worked, and the jury's out on the rail companies. There's a definite direction of travel there. But Labour would say, look at Norway. Look at state ownership of their natural resources and how that's transformed the sort of country that people can live in. But I don't think, Michael, it's like the 70s where private companies are deemed as bad. The Labour government wants to work with business and operates in a capitalist society, and then the debate is around the softness of that and the other questions that flow from it. But it's not a fixed ideological obsession at all with nationalisation. Where it can work and where government needs to intervene, Labour will look at it.
I mean, it does indeed seem unlikely that the Labour would go back into the fields of telecommunications or airlines or things like that. And have you any idea how the Conservatives would react? I mean, are the Conservatives going to say that the railways ought to be privatised again?
I think they probably would do because, I mean, well, it depends when the election is and who gets in. But if, let's say, the election was next year and the Conservatives got in, they would have enough time to, prevent more of the networks from being nationalised again. So I think they might be able to halt it. Again, it also depends on the contracts and the licences and how much time they have left. But back on the Thames Water point, I know you're very keen to discuss it. I think you're absolutely right. It is immoral. But there is also a difference in the way that Thames Water is run because it's private equity rather than, publicly listed company. So I think potentially there should be some sort of regulation on that because when it's listed on the stock exchange, there's more of an incentive to, your share prices are impacted by how you operate and how the services are, and there's potentially more limitations on the bonuses.
You're saying that
I mean, to reminisce again.
Yeah.
We thought, back in the 80s, that if you privatised water and you had a regulator, the regulator would stop things going wrong. And it has been the failure of the regulator, whether because the regulator hasn't acted on the powers that the regulator had, or maybe the government didn't give the regulator the right powers to begin with. But that has been where the failure is. Kevin, very briefly, is there a bit of a danger? I didn't know what Ellie was saying about how things have got worse on South Western Railways, apparently since they went back into the public sector. Is there a danger there for Labour that, for the moment, nationalisation of the railways looks fairly popular, but it certainly won't be if the services get worse?
Yeah. If services get worse, I think it's as I said, and if fares don't go down, people are going to be livid. I got the shock of my life trying to book a train ticket to Exeter earlier today, tomorrow. I nearly fell over at the price of a standard class return. You're 200 quid. So that can't, that we need to look at that. And if you're right, Michael, there will be a political price to pay if these things don't get better.
I think it's all to do with algorithms. Thank you very much, panel, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. That's Ellie Wheatley and Kevin Craig. Now, coming up... That's not the only piece of music he wrote, by the way. Did Richard Wagner's anti-Semitism permeate his operas or inspire Hitler? This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel. 5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. The 19th century opera composer Richard Wagner has been accused of virulent anti-Semitism and of inspiring Adolf Hitler. What is the truth in those accusations? A new book painstakingly researches what Wagner wrote and said and what he didn't write and say. And the book is called Wagner, The Invention of a Monster. And its author, Professor Derek Hughes, joins me now. Very good to see you. So, for people who are not too familiar with this subject, what has Richard Wagner been accused of in the past? What sort of anti-Semitism and what sort of influence on Hitler?
Well, the professor of German, Ronald Taylor, wrote time and again Wagner called for the annihilation of the Jewish race, an alien body in an Aryan German state. Now, not only did Wagner not call for that time and again, he didn't call for it at all. He never did. I was really guided to the title of my book by an article by Dominic Lawson on the occasion of Wagner's 200th birthday. It argued that we should go on listening to Wagner, but the headline was, Hitler's favourite composer was a monster. And various facts were alleged in support of this, that Wagner believed in the German master race, that his views influenced Hitler, and that he had sent a letter to his wife urging that all Jews should be incinerated during a performance of Lessing's play, Nathan the Wise. Now, none of these statements is true. He didn't believe in a German master race. His views didn't influence Hitler, and he sent no such letter to his wife. And yet this sort of thing is publicised in a major, respectable British newspaper. Now, how did Lawson come to this conclusion? Well, he got his ideas from the English version of Der Spiegel, which, and added a bit. The English version of Der Spiegel got its ideas from the German version of Der Spiegel and added a bit. The German version of Der Spiegel got the story about the letter to Cosima Wagner from a Holocaust survivor. Obviously an impeachment...
May I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
May I ask you, what was the nature of Wagner's anti-Semitism?
It was cultural. Well, the term anti-Semitism is a difficult term, actually. In the early 1870s, when the anti-Jewish movement got going again, there were plenty of writers who thought that the difference was one of culture. One writer, Ernst von der Bruggen, said the Jewish question is a question of culture. And that's what Wagner thought.
Wagner thought that Jews were set apart from German society and therefore could not be expressive artistically because they didn't feel the culture. They couldn't...
Yes.
They could, that was his view, is that right?
That was his view in Judaism in music, which should not be taken as a statement of his lifelong view.
Right.
It was a response to a particular conflict between Lohengrin and Meyerbeer's opera Le Prophète. What Wagner said in Judaism in music was that the Jewish composer was like a poet writing in a language which was not his mother tongue. He could only do so from the outside. not inwardly. And what he urged was that, and the attack is mainly on the very successful composer Giacomo Meyerbeer, a Jew. Now, Meyerbeer helped him along at this point by writing operas in Italian, German and French. But at the end of Judaism in Music, Wagner urges Jewish artists utterly to absorb German identity and to emulate Heinrich Heine and Ludwig Börner. So he gives two examples of artists who made the transition.
So you're saying that his objection was not a racist one, but a cultural one. An interesting point. There's a character in the Meistersinger of Nuremberg called Beckmesser.
Yeah.
And he steals a song.
Yeah.
And when he tries to sing it, he gets the words all wrong and he gets the music all wrong. He makes a fool of himself.
Yeah.
Doesn't that exactly illustrate what you've just told me Wagner thought about Jews? That here was someone who, confronted with a piece of German music, just got it all wrong. Is he not an anti-Jewish trope, that figure?
Well, why was it never mentioned until about 1960? I have read a lot of Wagner criticism from the 19th and early 20th centuries. Other scholars haven't. None of us have been able to come up with a single critic who identifies Beckmesser as a Jew figure. And he is identified as a musical pedant, someone who believes in the rules, someone who's a coloratura opera composer. There are other possible targets, but the Jews aren't mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point, because Wagner wrote extensively about all his intentions. He wrote letters to people, he wrote diaries about his intentions in music, and he never mentions that these are anti-Jewish tropes, which seems rather odd. Anyway, your book is an amazing piece of scholarship. Thank you very much indeed for coming and talking to me about it today. That's Professor Derek Hughes, and the book is called Wagner, the Invention of a Monster. Coming up, Stefan Kyriazis will take to the stage, sharing his reviews of Abigail's Party and How the Other Half Lives. But first, your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a chilly start this morning, but feeling nice and warm again by the time we reach the afternoon. It is gradually going to turn more and more unsettled this week, though, with some rain and also some showers. For the time being, though, it's mostly dry, settled, all thanks to this area of high pressure sitting nicely across the UK today. So many areas are going to see a dry afternoon, plenty of sunshine out there, probably more sunshine than what we saw yesterday. Saying that, though, it's likely to be a little bit cloudier across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, the odd spot of rain across the far north of Scotland. But for many areas, it is going to be dry, a touch warmer than yesterday, many areas pushing into the low 20s, and across the far north, temperatures pushing in towards the high teens. So it should be quite a nice end to the weekend for many areas. Still, though, by the evening across Scotland, quite a cloudy picture, still some spots of rain across the very far north and northwest. Also quite a cloudy end to the day across Northern Ireland, some spots of rain, mostly light though, and across the hills. Perhaps a little bit cloudier towards the end of the day across the far north of England, but otherwise elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to finish off. Now, overnight, skies will clear more and more, certainly across the far north where it's been a little bit cloudier this afternoon. That does mean under the clearest skies, temperatures are soon going to be dipping away, so it's another chilly night. Temperatures in the countryside could dip down to the low single figures. Perhaps not dropping quite as low across the far south, a bit of an easterly breeze developing here, which should hold temperatures up quite nicely. Then Monday itself looks like quite a settled picture, plenty of bright skies to start the day. We could see a little bit more cloud into the afternoon and the odd spot of rain, but most areas are likely to remain dry, still fairly breezy across the far south, and temperatures will increase by a degree or two by many areas, temperatures pushing into the mid-20s across the south.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Good afternoon. The top stories from the GB newsroom. 2 police officers killed in a wrong-way crash on the A66 near Middlesbrough have been remembered as brave officers protecting our communities in what's been described as an unimaginable loss. 37-year-old PC Matthew Blades and 38-year-old PC Tom Clough were killed when a car with 5 occupants, said to be in their late teens to early 20s, driving the wrong way, struck the Cleveland police vehicle in the early hours of Saturday morning. The IOPC is now investigating. Elsewhere, a small power plant has been shut down during a cyber attack. The government says at no point was there a risk to the UK's energy system. The Daily Telegraph reported the attack, which happened last month, was carried out by hackers affiliated to the Iranian regime. And mayors across England will be given new powers to overrule local councils on some planning decisions. The change would apply to proposals with more than 150 homes, more than 15,000 square metres of commercial space or buildings over 30 metres. The Conservative Party's questioned whether it was right for councils to lose the ability to make planning decisions in their own communities. Those are the latest headlines. More at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much, Tatiana Sanchez. Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis and his spookily similar doppelganger Rafa are here to share their theatre reviews of the week. How lovely to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Now, what have you been to see then? Abigail's Party?
Yes, first up is Abigail's Party. That's kind of very iconic Mike Leigh piece. Just to get us in the mood very quickly, we've got the trailer so you can see how it's been staged and the visuals, and then we'll get stuck in.
Some nuts. Take some crisps as well.
If you'd like to come in on Monday morning with your deposit and get in touch with your building society, we'll see how things go.
Take another one, Sue. Save me coming back.
See you tomorrow morning. Bye now.
This is my husband, Tony.
How'd you do?
He's got a firm handshake, hasn't he? Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Me champagne. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Me insane. We liven things up a bit. Oh, it's all happening at your place.
A fantastic period piece.
It really is. And I have to say...
Give people the background on Abigail's Party. Remind us when it was written and so on.
Yes, so this is 1977. And I have to say, we all know you're a glorious patron of the arts, Michael, but it's very generous of you to let them use the inspiration for the decor as well. It's the most hideous tangerine wallpaper, greige leather, shiny sofa, and she very grandly serves pineapple hedgehogs, which I believe is one of your specialities. So we're just having a bit of Beaujolais.
So they recreate the 70s very well.
They do, absolutely gloriously. And we're just on the edges of London, going onto the outskirts, and we're on a street with lots of change. Some older houses have sort of the remnants of middle-class people. Then you've got the upcoming middle class, and then the sort of lower bridge. This is Beverly. I have to say, Tamsin Outhwaite, people have been saying born to play this role. She's magnificent in this. And also, director Nadia Fall is now at the Young Vic. But she directed this a couple of years ago, and the two of them are a powerhouse because she was also in Joe Orton's Entertaining Mr. Sloan, the two of them together. I want to see more of these two, actress and director. Phenomenal. It's very alive. So basically, Beverly is hosting a dinner. She's hosting an evening, a cocktail evening. Opens with Love to Love You, Baby. She's dancing on the coffee table, swirling around. The deep, bitter irony is that she wants to be loved, but she wants to be adored. She wants to be admired for her exquisite taste, and she is bored. She's got the money she always wanted from her very boring estate agent husband, but there's no real connection between them. He has copies of Lowry and Van Gogh on the wall and thinks he's very, very classy. Abigail's party, Abigail is down the road. We never see Abigail. She is the daughter of Sue, a posher neighbour, who is there as... The play was often seen as punching down. So Sue is possibly interpreted as our sort of viewpoint into the play. So she's a little bit uncomfortable and also not impressed with the pineapple and the Beaujolais and all the rest of it. However, Pandora Collin, who plays it in this, does a fantastic job of just being awkward and uncomfortable and incredibly polite. So there's not as much judgment. The genius for me is Tamsin Outhwaite makes this, I guess, a slightly more modern feel. She's a bit of a mean girl. So she's not just this chaotic, frustrated force of nature. Alison Steadman will forever be associated with this role. Incredible. But also, there's a calculating edge to it. You can see that she's actually enjoying people being uncomfortable. She's enjoying lording over. So it's a little bit unpleasant. It's deliciously, gloriously funny. I loved everything about it until the ending, which, for those that don't know, we won't spoil. It doesn't land. It's always had trouble landing, but here especially, it just comes out of nowhere. And it's a real shame, but there's not a lot you can do about that. But this is fantastic theatre, fantastically staged. All 5 actors on stage. Oh, we should mention the other couple is South Asian, which is a really nice little twist. Brings in a sort of modern resonance, and also the stuffy husband is talking about how cosmopolitan the area is being, and he means less classy people than himself, but actually there's a nice little double layer to that. So there's a lot of nice updates without wrecking the play. Thoroughly, massively recommend this. And
I
it's on
don't think you told us where it is.
Harold Pinter till September the 19th.
The Harold Pinter Theatre. Very good. What else have you got for us today?
So this is very interesting because actually the same week we've got How the Other Half Loves. Alan Ayckbourn, a little bit earlier, 1969, but incredibly simmer. Again, a rather sort of vicious satire on class. And this time about 3 couples. And what we've got for this one is we've got some of the actors talking about the play to get you a little bit into the spirit.
I'm loving it. It's very technically demanding and difficult. There's a sort of rhythm to it that you have to discover and obey, and is awesome. You've done some before.
I have done a few Ayckbourns before. The common theme for Ayckbourn plays laughing at people's pain, which is very up my alley, so I'm loving that.
The writing is just so razor sharp and dizzying. It's easy to just get lost in it.
What I've noticed and that I'm loving about it is how many British sitcoms Alan's work has influenced. And I keep thinking, oh, this is a bit like, I won't say which. If you're a fan of that, then I think you'll probably enjoy it.
I think it's going to be a lovely summer night out.
If you want to get swept along by some really classy, epic farce, this is the play.
I think I saw there that this is on at the Old Vic, is it?
It is.
Is this revival as successful as Abigail's Party?
In some ways, but no. But also some of that lies with the play itself. So what they've done is this is staged, as always intended, in the round. The Old Vic is doing an entire season of everything in the round, but this was written and intended to be in the round. And what you have is 3 couples. Fosters are the sort of the posher ones again. He's the head manager of a business. Then you have the Phillips, who is one of his workers and up and coming. And then at the bottom, we have the Featherstones, who are coded as pretty working class. And they're probably the most ridiculous cartoony of the 3. But the 2 other couples, the entire round stage is both their living rooms and everything happening at the same time, including lots, as we can see there, lots of phone calls, because 2 of them are having an affair. So they're trying to make phone calls, the wrong people are picking up, and they're standing next to each other on the phones. It's intensely clever. So what happens is the posher one, Mrs. Foster, misses their wedding anniversary and doesn't have a good excuse for it. She is sleeping with Bob Phillips, who's a complete Lothario, and he's in a much more explosive marriage. They somehow, between them, decide to say that they were both independently with one of the Featherstones, who each thinks that the other partner is having a marriage, which, when you see the Featherstones, is ludicrous. It all spirals massively out of control. It's incredibly well set up. As he was saying there, it's all throw and catch, setups, punchlines, slapstick. Phenomenally well done. I mean, headed by Roger Allam, this is a superb cast. It really is fantastic. What they do is they have a dinner party where each of the innocent couple invites the Featherstones over to help with their marriage. Nobody knows what's going on, chaos ensues, and they have the tables like this as a cross, and again, it happens simultaneously. It's phenomenally good, and most of this is the first half. For me, and you saw there that Dorothy Atkins, who's incredible, said that this has inspired so many sitcoms. Yes, indeed, and maybe she was trying not to say The Good Life and things like that. It's very much Margot Ledbetter in there. But for me, sitcoms, yes, but we care about people in sitcoms. That's the key to it. And then this is also dealing with adultery. And yes, theatre's always gone there, but TV would never have gone there at that time. So I would like a little bit more bite. It all just unravels towards the end, and all three men in their own way are kind of unacceptable tropes now. They're all either neglectful, abusive, talking about hitting, whatever it might be. So that gets more and more uncomfortable. So for me, first half is absolute bliss. It's so beautifully, wonderfully done. I would like more of made of the staging. It doesn't really distinguish between the two classes, which is, there's a lot of class commentary underneath it. You don't get as much of that. But it's joyous to revel in their performances. For me, it just, the second half starts dragging and doesn't land. So, shame, but much to enjoy.
You've had a pretty good week.
Yeah, I laughed constantly.
Yeah, you had a pretty good week. You've just got time to mention a third.
This is super quick, just because it's something so different, and they haven't really released very much except one image, so we don't even have a trailer or anything like this, but it's called Death Note. It's on at the Barbican, and the Barbican have been doing a lot of sort of big overseas themed, like The Strange Loop, My Neighbor Totoro, all these sorts of things, and it's fabulous what they're bringing in. This is Death Note. It's based on Japanese manga, and it's you can see him in the centre there, a very self-righteous young student who is furious that people never get the justice they deserve, murderers, abusers, whatever it might be. And then the bit that I love about this is it brings in Shinigami, who are the sort of Japanese spirits, various iterations of them, but basically related to death. And one of them is bored and capricious and drops his notebook where you write the names of people that are going to die to see what the boy will do with it. And at first, he enacts justice, and then he starts getting a god complex, and then he starts getting rid of enemies, settling debts, vendettas. So it gets darker and darker. It's a wonderful idea. It's beautifully staged. There's this fantastic central screen that makes you look like you're looking up at a Tokyo skyline. It's incredible. I love the Shinigami. There's some really strong performances. Music by Frank Wildhorn, who has been around for many years. He did Jekyll and Hyde. He did Bonnie and Clyde. Lots of themes there. It needs some tightening and some streamlining. Music's a bit repetitive and just a bit more characterization. But I love the story and I love the themes of, this is very much a kid's, it's bringing in a very different audience. Friends went on other nights and said it's a very mixed, young, excited audience. We want lots of that. So again, if that's your bag, go and see it. And I think there's potential for this to be really wonderful. And that's on at the Barbican until September the 12th.
Stefan, thank you so much. And Rafa, indeed, who's taking things pretty calmly there. Thank you, Stefan Kyriazis. Now, coming up, as we enter the final weeks of August and indeed of summer, there's just enough time to enjoy rosé wine, which is what I intend to do. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News. Thank you.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We have an area of low pressure developing just towards the west of Portugal, bringing some much needed rain and showers towards Portugal, parts of Spain, and also drifting into parts of France. Could be a little bit heavy, potentially thundery at times, but any thundery downpours across parts of the Alps have now eased away. A few showers in parts of Greece, otherwise still very much dry, settled with some sunshine, and it remains that way for the rest of the week with temperatures pushing into the mid-30s across parts of Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I might shock you because I do understand why there are people that perhaps will need to take this because of medical issues. I get that, urgent medical issues. But let's face it, this is actually the greedy goods pill. That's what this is. Do I think it will make people lazy in society? Common sense, of course it will. We all want the magic pill. The concern, of course, with the pill, I'm sure the pharmacists will agree, is the potential side effects of these pills. We need to take personal responsibility in the UK, and at the moment, when it comes to health and many other things, we don't.
Thorin, I could see you shaking your head a little bit there. What do you think?
Well, look, it's not a magic pill. It's a medical intervention for a complex condition. I think calling people lazy is just an easy thing to do because it assumes that people who are struggling with weight just need more motivation.
The People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm thrilled to say now I'm joined by another World War II veteran.
In my judgment, the Mosquito was a better aircraft because it's got 2 Spitfire engines.
And you flew it all over Europe. You told me that you had a particularly memorable flight near Berlin. What happened there?
A shell came up underneath, it lifted up the aircraft and it interfered for a brief period with the fuel supply. I didn't know. All I knew was I'd got the propellers were windmilling around and we hadn't any power. And eventually the power came on again. And I leaned across to Doug, my navigator. He was a Canadian, a wonderful bloke. And I said to him, you weren't frightened, were you, Doug? And he said, no, I wasn't frightened, I was bloody terrified.
GB News.
We're only here for like 12 hours. We're flying home at 11 o'clock tonight.
Oh. And mummy and daughter.
Yeah, and it only costs £70, so we thought, well, why not? Because it's cheaper than a supermarket shop.
Supermarket shop or spending the day in Benidorm with cheap booze.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a no-brainer.
And is there no chance you might just decide we're going to stay?
No, because my husband would kill me.
We did consider it because I said to my mum earlier on, we might just stay and miss the flight, but she's not up for it.
Has your husband actually visited Benidorm his own?
No, he hasn't. I've been here 27 times. That's my daughter's first time. She's a Benidorm virgin. But
well,
my husband's never been.
Not that he's told you anyway, let's put it like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Before the season ends, let's enjoy the last of the summer rosé wine. Wine consultant Lily Thomas joins me now. Lovely to see you again, Lily.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Good to see you.
What is rosé wine? How does it get that colour?
So the colour is from the red grapes. It's made with either white or red grapes, and it's left to macerate or steep, so you get a little bit of that red grape colour, but not so much that it's a red wine.
And I just read up on this because I knew that vaguely, but I read yesterday that you leave the skins for between 2 hours and 20 hours. So
yes.
It's a tiny period of time.
Exactly.
I'd assume they were left there for quite a long time, but no, just a matter of hours.
No, it could be sort of when you want something really pale, it could be an hour or so, just to give it a sort of really slight colour, because otherwise you start getting a lot of tannin and sort of body that you don't want with the rosés.
We start with a bottle here, which has the most wonderful label.
It's brilliant,
I mean, you really want to go and buy that, don't you? What on earth is going on that label? It's called The Pale Rosé by Sacha Lichine. Where does this come from?
This is from Provence. So this is the sort of sibling, little sister of a very famous rosé. And so they're making the same thing, but I find it sort of lighter, easier to drink, more fruity, and I think I prefer it. So it's delicious, really.
Oh, that is deeply delicious. Very drinkable, isn't it?
It is.
You go on all afternoon with that.
Yeah,
It makes no demands on you, does it?
No, that's a very good way of describing it, yeah.
Why does rosé go with summer?
Because rosé is, like you say, it's unchallenging, it's fresh, you've got the sort of fruit and the lightness, so it goes with sort of all the summer food, and also you can have it very, very cold, so it's refreshing. But I don't think it's just for summer, but it is particularly good in summer.
We're pouring ourselves another. Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't expect
It's
that.
exciting.
So what's happened here is there's a little bit of a fizz in this wine.
Yes. Thank you.
And that took me by surprise because it's not in a sort of champagne-style bottle, not in a reinforced bottle. So what are we drinking here?
So this is a Vino Verde rosé. So this is quite fun because it's the traditional Vino Verde with a little bit of a red grape, again, just to give it colour, and a little bit of berry fruit, but you're still getting that sort of zesty, real refreshing tang from the Vino Verde.
Oh, isn't that nice? That little pétillant on the tongue.
Exactly.
Is very nice. It's
quite fun.
Actually quite sweet, possibly a little too sweet for my liking. This comes from M&S.
Yes.
Any idea what that would cost?
So that's under £10. That's about £8 or £9. So very reasonable.
Pretty reasonable, yes.
Yeah.
I have a theory, which is, you'll probably think it's very odd. I think rosé wine goes with Chinese food.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got the right flavours, sort of, when it gets kind of grapefruit and almost even tropical fruit, it does complement. It's actually a really good one for all sort of Asian food. Sushi as well, it goes with nicely.
Does it? Yeah. Because when I've been into a Chinese restaurant, I mean, maybe one shouldn't be drinking wine with Chinese food at all, but I've always sort of asked myself what goes with it, and I tried a rosé, and it really seemed to be quite successful. You might have to reach the next one.
Yes.
Now, what I can see, this one obviously is going to be sparkling.
Yes.
And what I can see is that it's called Asti.
It is. It's an Asti. So this is a new kind of a new type of Asti that they've launched, rosé, and it launched in 2024. So it's very recent. So these are the sort of first vintages you can get. And so normally it's just Moscato, and it's going to be very sweet for you. So I'm not sure. But now they've used a red grape as well, and so they're adding a little bit of colour.
I was going to say, the word Asti immediately gets up my prejudices. Asti Spevanti is not one of my favourites, but let's see.
I like it because it's very low ABV, so it's about 7%, so it's naturally very light in alcohol.
Yes, and I talked about drinking it all afternoon. If you're going to do that, it could be quite handy for it to be just...
Yeah, the first one is 13, so you're going to notice that after a while.
You're essentially halving the burden on your body there. This Asti, what kind of price would that be, do you think?
This is very reasonable. It's sort of around about £7, 7 or 8, so it's quite an easy one to sort of try and experiment with.
Now, you're certainly taking me by surprise here.
Yes.
Why have you served this to me?
Because I think
with a straw.
With a straw. Well, I think the straw is sort of maybe they don't like that in champagne, but I think it's really fun, and I think it's just such a nice, novel way to drink a champagne. There's bank holiday weekend, maybe sort of summer party. You get your own champagne, that's perfect.
This makes me feel like I'm on an airliner. This is a little screw top.
Is this how they used to serve it? Yeah.
But it is generally a champagne.
Yes. No, it's very good, and they're brilliant for their rosé as well, and they have lovely quality, and it is delicious. Probably should be served in a glass, but I think
Champagne
the straw is fine.
Lançon, le rosé.
Yeah.
That's ooh. Well, I must say that's easily my favourite.
I thought it would be, yeah.
The price will...
Yeah, so, I mean, this is around 15 to 17, so it's a little bit more, but if you sort of don't want to buy a full bottle, this is
15,
a half
17
bottle.
for this little bottle?
Yeah, so kind of novelty, a bit of fun, maybe not for everybody, but I quite like... just having a little sip or a sousson.
Be jolly nice for picnicking.
Yes.
How popular are rosé wines? You must know in your business.
Rosés are very, very popular. They're very summer wines. They're very seasonally popular. They don't have a long period of being popular, but they sell very. One of the best-selling categories is rosé wine. So yeah, it's not to be sniffed at.
And any tips on how to drink it? I would say outdoors.
Outdoors, very cold, as cold as you like. People put ice in it, that's fine. I would always suggest with rosé getting the newest vintage, so not getting some. So we're in 2026. We want to drink 2025, not the 2024s, because they're going to be a bit tired. So. As fresh as you can get the rosés to be.
No, absolutely. Rosé is not a thing to be drunk old.
No.
Lily, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you
That's a
for
lovely
having me.
end to the programme. I'm so grateful to Lily Thomas, and I want to thank all my guests today. I thoroughly enjoyed our 2 hours together. I will be back at the same time next week, but coming up now, it's going to be The Weekend with Dawn Neeson. I say with a bottle in my hand, Dawn, what's coming up on your programme?
Pass the bottle over and I'll tell you. I've come to a very appropriate colour, I have to say. Great show as always, Michael. We've got a great show for you as well. We're going to be investigating the TikTok trend that led to that horrific accident in which 2 young police officers lost their lives in that head-on collision. What is going on that people feel the need to do this and post these horrendous videos on TikTok? We're also talking about the new tagging zones that are going to come into force. And I'm going to be telling you the story of one victim who is moving home with her 5 children because she is so terrified and has no trust in the tagging system. We're also talking about Erling Haaland's new haircut. All of that coming up soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to our GB News weather update from the Met Office. Looking ahead, there's lots of fine weather to come over the next couple of days, though it is gradually going to be turning more unsettled through the course of the week with some rain and also some showers. For the time being, though, we've got high pressure sat nicely over the UK today, bringing mostly fine, settled conditions. And that remains the same through the course of the evening. There might be a little bit more cloud towards the north and northwest, some spots of rain perhaps across the very far north of Scotland, but most of this cloud will be clearing away through the course of the night, so it is going to be turning chilly again. Areas in the countryside could dip down to the low single figures. Temperatures won't drop quite as low across the far south, a decent easterly breeze developing here, but for most it is going to be a fairly fresh start to start the new week. Then across areas of Scotland, we may see some mist and fog in places, certainly across the west, perhaps a little bit cloudier still towards the far north and northeast of Scotland, where we could still see some spots of rain. Across areas of Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, it's likely to be a brighter start compared to what we had this morning. And there'll be some patchy cloud across the very far southwest of England. But for most, although a chilly start, it should be fairly bright with some sunshine. Then through the course of the day, we will eventually start to see some more cloud bubble up, certainly into the afternoon, and there could be the odd shower or two, but most areas are likely to remain dry. A slight shift in our wind direction as well, a bit more of a south-southeasterly component, and with less cloud around, that does mean temperatures are going to be slightly higher for many areas, likely pushing into the low, if not the mid-20s across the very far south. Then later on into the evening, as soon as the sun goes down, it is going to be feeling chilly once again, but we'll eventually start to see more cloud push up from the south, potentially some spells of rain through the course of the night. And towards Wednesday onwards, we could start to see some more rain and some more showers, and it will eventually start to turn more humid.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's brand new and it's the big one. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could win this brand new 4-berth motorhome. But that's just the beginning, as we'll also give you a whopping £35,000 in tax-free cash to spend, save, or just to use to enjoy adventures in your new motorhome.
For a chance to win, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB23 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 23rd of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.